As you can tell from my makeup, I saw Joker. Well, not only I saw Joker, but here I advanced a little bit on my moving out to my new location. As you can see now, I have my desk. I have this. I have a little bit of lighting because I'm filming this actually during daytime. You still have to bear a little bit with the echo. It's still a work in progress. But hey, I saw a great movie. Yep, it's Joker. And for the occasion, at least for this video, I decided to put on some makeup. Trying myself how would I look like if I give myself a bad makeup of a clown. But doesn't matter. As bad as it is, it makes it a little bit creepier. But of course, not as creepier as the Joker learned this one. Okay, enough prelude about this. Let's talk about the movie. This film. Honestly, I was anticipating Joker for a long time, ever since it started. The biggest reason is, of course, that we're talking about a movie based on probably one of the greatest comic book villains there is, which is none other than the Joker. He's not exactly kind of like my favorite, but it's probably also one of my top 10 because of how psychotic and fascinating this character is. And what perplexed a lot about this character and its portrayal on the many years that he has been in existence is that no matter how much you try to see or try to understand him, you kind of can't, because, well, he's basically an enigma. His origins is an enigma. People are trying to even make essays and book reports about this character, but almost no avail, I'll say. Probably the closest thing to have a kind of like an understandable origin is probably the comic slash movie that people don't want to know about it, The Killing Joke. And well, that's the closest thing to you can know about this character. And of course, since I'm a fan of Batman, this is why I'm into it. But the second reason that I'm actually very, very glad about this movie is that this movie is very separate from the DC cinematic universe that they've been establishing for all these years. And I wish that they could, again, they should push the reset button on that one, because if we get movie, because that kind of proves that if you make a standalone movie without by ignoring everything about the cinematic universe, you're gonna get something that is really good. In this case, man, this was a fascinating movie. Oh yeah, let's address the elephant in the room, of course. That controversy. The controversy I recently kind of heard saying that people are worried that this is a movie that's gonna glorify violence, or they're gonna create more mass murders. People, here's a little bit of my 2 cents. Have you seen any movies? Have you seen the Joker? Do you know the Joker? The Joker is a psychopath. He is a crazy mass murdering clown. We know this. You only want to stay in the realm of the 80s or 90s Joker, where he's technically crazy but is more goofy. We live in kind of like a more harder times, and we need to address that. I know that we had the incident years ago from Dark Knight, which I'll not get into this in this video. But unfortunately, since comic book movies are kind of a little bit more approachable into real life situations in order to make it a little bit more relatable, that's technically, well, the consequences that it's gonna have. But that's my 2 cents about this. But right now, it it is time for me to talk about this movie. I'm having the Joker condition. So the movie Joker is basically kind of like an alternate storytelling about the origins of the Joker. Because if you are basically familiar with DC Comics, there are always variations of the origins of him. This case in point again, Killing Joke. In this case, we follow this man named Arthur Fleck, and he's played by the actor Joaquin Phoenix. He's basically the run-of-the-mill clown who aspires to be a comedian. But unfortunately, his life is not exactly glamorous. He gets bullied by people all around. The worker doesn't see him very well. He makes petty cash. He lives in a rundown apartment. And also he lives with his mother, who has kind of like this kind of disillusioned mentality that he has to take care of her. Pretty much this until little by little he's being exposed to the possibilities of violence, and starting out with one of his co-workers had given him a gun. And during the rest of the movie, you're gonna see him descend into madness over and over again. And at this point, I wish I could stop saying much, because this is basically the only thing you need to know in order to let you know what this movie is about. But because the rest of it, I really encourage you to watch it. Because even for a comic book film, this is a fascinating film to watch. And what makes this movie more fascinating? For one reason, it's not other than Joaquin Phoenix playing as the Joker, or in this case, Arthur Fleck. He is brilliant, let me tell you. He chews the scenery, but he eats it delightfully. And man, that he does a great job. He does a million times better job than Jared Leto. And I'm not sick on trashing this guy's performance on the Joker in Suicide Squad. Because while Jared Leto, he basically kind of get a little bit too carried away with the performance, Joaquin Phoenix, he managed to create a character that is not only, well, dangerously compelling, but also fascinating and also pitiful. Because you see this character going through really, really hard moments. You see him that he is emotionally unstable. He's mentally unhealthy. He has kind of like this syndrome in which once in a while he can stop laughing. But then people around him, they're just saying, hey, is that funny? What's so funny? And the little moment in which he tries to become empathetic, it's kind of painful to see how everything kind of backfires. In a way, you feel that the problem is not the Joker himself, it's actually Gotham City. Gotham City is always portrayed to be one of the biggest shitholes in the city world, let's say, in the world of comics. Because there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of criminals going rampant. The rich are manipulating the poor people, and when the series takes some serious turns, it takes really, really serious. So again, Joaquin Phoenix did a great job portraying this guy. But there are other characters that are there that also do a good job. There's the mother the mother plays she plays her role well, kind of like this delusional woman who she kind of has this distant love to his son, but she's kind of feeling hopeful that he just makes it out to the outside. But at the same time, she's kind of always watching the news. She sees the guy who's running for mayor, who is none other than Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, because she sees him like a messiah figure he's gonna help him out. But there is kind of like a really, really disturbing secret that goes into there. But I'm not gonna exactly tell you what it is. But there is something between her and Thomas Wayne, and not exactly the thing that you think of. There's also this kind of like this talk show comedian played by Robert De Niro, who he basically kind of became the inspiration of Arthur to become a comedian. A struggling comedian, but it's kind of like a beacon of hope. But then, to try to make it less spoilerish, what will happen if your hero kind of disses you later in life? That's basically it. And then remember that I told you about the gun? Well, let's say that doesn't go well at work, and this combined things is what you're gonna see the whole movie of, seeing how this character sinks so low until he finally Just to make you clear on one thing, nobody in this movie are heroes. You only see partly anti-heroes. Well, you know what? Not even anti-heroes. I mean, as sympathetic the movie makes us feel bad on the character of Arthur, you always feel that there is something wrong with this guy and that, well, you know, he's basically the Joker. You know that he's gonna descend to madness. But sometimes they say that it's just like the Killing Joke said. It takes one bad day in order to change your life, even for the worse or for the best. In this case, I will say that it's mostly a big bad chain of events that he just sinks down into the deepest hole, and well, he can't do anything, especially because the people around him, either the ones who try to help him or the ones that he is surrounded, they can't help him because they treat him like dirt. For example, we see him in the psychologist. The psychologist doesn't give a damn about this guy. Even when he's kind of like he can like cuckoo part, they don't help him. It's always about the fundings. The mother is technically a little bit too disillusioned in order for helping him out. The job, even though he likes the job, he has to deal with, bad people who they don't like him because he's a clown, probably because clown karma, or jealous co-workers because you can tell that the guy is talented. He's just kind of struggling. And when we get to the moments of with Thomas Wayne, which is again Bruce Wayne's father, he's not exactly a good person. Thomas Wayne, you can see him that he's not a good person. He is basically another rich guy who is also about appearances and all this stuff. But okay, maybe appearances is wrong. You can see him both sides of this guy. He's a guy who tries to not get involved with this guy because, well, he's a creep. But he doesn't know how to deal with a guy like that. But in his defense, you will react the same with someone a stranger that it feels like is mentally disturbed will react but since we follow Arthur, it kind of makes us feel bad for him when Thomas Wayne kind of treats him like that. And man, that there's some parts that are kind of hard to watch, I'll say. But eventually you're gonna see where it leads to us, with you know, the climax and all that. If there's one thing that probably people might be afraid that this movie kind of incites violence, it's mostly on the socially political ramification that this movie has, in which apparently it takes just one event that triggers almost everything. And the biggest case of this movie is when after Arthur gets fired from his job because of an unloyal co-worker. I'm not going to go a second into details. He gets an confrontation with three rich Wall Street guys that they begin to bully him, but because Arthur finally snapped and he has the gun, he kills all three of them very gung-ho fashionably. And from this point, during the whole movie, it begins to build up that there are people who consider him a mass murderer, a dangerous person, and other people who begin to worship him as a hero. Mostly the poor community, because, well, Gotham City is always filled with people who wants to, you know, rich defeat the rich, and the rich trying to defeat the poor. And there is this big giant confrontation that at first you see Arthur like, I don't care, and then you slowly see that this kind of gives him a little bit of a reputation as the infamous killer clown, let's say. And this part kind of fascinates me. And this is pretty much what I can say about the storytelling. Because I'll say also that in the terms of the cinematography, I really like. It's not bright. Don't expect something like Suicide Squad that everything is bright, eye candy and all this stuff. No, this movie takes itself a little bit seriously with this film, in which basically it didn't try to create a superhero or / supervillain movie. It basically wanted to make a drama of a poor sap who couldn't cope with the harshness of reality, and he just decided to take a violent turn out of it. Well, I gotta admit, there's some parts that are technically funny, but in a way you feel like uncomfortably laughing because you don't know if you want to laugh or not on the misery of what is happening. And you know what? It kind of works because that's basically the Joker. The Joker is kind of like the guy who's gonna shoot your relatives in the head and make a knock-knock jokes out of it. That's him. That's what makes him a very, very dangerous person. The lining words, the coloring words, there's even soundtracks that it works in comparison to what is happening into the film, and it works well. It's so much that the slow pacedness of the movie, because it is a 2-hour-long film, you don't feel like it. You just feel enjoying the whole thing. And if you're a fan of Batman, you're just waiting there saying when he's finally gonna put on the trademark green hair and the clown makeup and all this stuff. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't involve chemicals this time. But like always, I have to play a little bit the mediator into this and trying to deflate the ego of this movie, because I do have a little bit of nitpicks that doesn't necessarily harm the film. It's just that there's some little nitpicks that a little bit of that kind of like a picky comic book guy, or well in my case animation guy, that doesn't sit a little bit too well with me. First off, I think there's an element on this film that feels really, really unnecessary. And it's usually with the character of this woman who is basically Arthur's, Arthur's neighbor, who he meets with her daughter, and he kind of, yeah, she said, "Oh, this is a shitty apartment," and he just go like, "Oh, my glasses." Sorry about that. I'll turn it on later. Yeah, the problem that I have with this woman is that I don't think that she contributes a lot onto the movie. I don't get why she's there. You could take out this character and it doesn't affect anything on the movie. It doesn't affect things at all. It is later kind of revealed something about that, but she doesn't do almost anything. At the end, almost at the climax of the film, she basically just disappears in a way or another. My second nitpick that I have is that it kind of makes me conflicted about the timeline in a way. I mean, it is cool to see, Bruce, Alfred, Thomas, and Martha Wayne, and, to connect, to let you know that, yeah, this is the same storyline of Batman, but isn't Joker supposed to be Batman's arch nemesis, his most proliferating and the most notable bad guy? So making him Arthur kind of like playing like a 30 or 20-year-old man, and then seeing Bruce Wayne as kind of like a 10 or 12-year-old guy, that kind of brings out conflict, because then in your imagination you might think that, well, when Bruce Wayne turns into Batman, he's probably now a young man battling an really old decrepit man who is basically, again, the Joker, which kind of doesn't sit a little bit too well with me. So basically that's a little bit of a nitpick. Doesn't harm the movie, but it will be nice to discuss it at this point. And I think that basically that's all the little nitpicks that I do have. Sorry that the neighbors are talking the neighbors are talking over there. Again, I'll try to fix this problem. But, well, it's a good thing because it's time for me to stop right now. But either way, I highly recommend The Joker. Well, Joker, the movie. I can see why some people who are fascinated in movies can say that this movie is gonna sweep the Oscars. Because, well, it's really good. I wouldn't go exactly that far. Maybe there's gonna be a better movie, kind of like a much less pretentious movie or more pretentious movie that's gonna sweep the Oscars. But I bet Joaquin Phoenix will be at least nominated. If he's nominated and if he wins the Oscar, that he could be like the second Oscar winner who played the Joker. I mean, that'll be the second time that someone who plays the character of the Joker will be nominated. I mean, Heath Ledger, don't get me wrong, he was a great Joker. He kind of put the staple on, well, how the Joker can be pushed to become a horrible mess. But this one, he's technically the same, but in the way that he's more like a tragic figure, more than than just a psychopath. So in the end, that was the tragic comedy of Joker. Check it out. Get yourself a good laugh.